Welcome everyone, and welcome back to those who've watched other videos from the channel. This will be a quick lesson on the structural analysis of fictional texts. This will relate mainly to the AQA 8700 GCSE English Language New 9-1 specification. Specifically, Paper 1, Question 3. Now, a disclaimer for all you experts out there. This video will start from a pretty basic level and overview how you should approach structural analysis questions, so you might want to skip ahead a little or view one of our more advanced videos. So, everything in our entire universe has structure, and hopefully by the end of this you will understand exactly what that means, if you don't already. If you do, well done you, and if you don't, then don't panic. It will become clearer as we get further along. So these are what humans call schematics. Robots have them. Cars of all makes and models have them. Buildings have them. This, would you believe, is a TV. Boats and ships have them. Guns have them. And books have them. Everything in the world has a structure, which can be, and probably already has been, mapped out. Some things easier than others, admittedly. In this video, we will be looking at the narrative and or story structure, which is what examiners want you to focus on in Paper 1, Question 3 for AQA. The intentional questions which will hopefully be answered by the end are: 1. What is structure when it comes to text? 2. How do I talk about structural features? 3. Which features are most important? And 4. How much do I write for the question? If you feel by the end that any are unanswered, then leave any questions or comments and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So we'll return to an image from earlier and quickly overview a book's structure so that we can determine the differences between book and narrative or story structure. So a book's structural makeup is very different and can be applied to the mechanics of all books, potentially. They are, like most other things in our vain existence, modelled on us and personified. They have heads, tails, spines, and other more specific features, like a forage, which again seems a lot like a personified pun. Narrative or story structure is miles apart from book structure. Just like books, however, and cars and buildings and even rockets, there are different types, shapes and models. Whole narrative structures are a limited number and just something else you need to be aware of, but that you won't necessarily have to mention in an exam, unless you're aiming for a grade 9, for example. This one is a circular, cyclical narrative, or narrative loop. It doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you know and can explain that it begins exactly where it ends. A traditional story structure, which we'll come back to in a few minutes, is a linear narrative, one which is in a straight line and chronologically ordered. Non-linear narrative structures are everything else. This includes dual narratives, with two parallel plots juxtaposed, cyclical narratives, reversed narratives, and other forms. All of these are not traditional and are not chronological, linear, or in a straight line. But what do these all have in common? We shall answer that question in due time. So this is the overused, traditional, predictable, damsel in distress type of narrative structure that is completely linear. It's known as a traditional story arc due to its obvious arc-like shape, with an exposition, posh word for start or beginning, where you are exposed to things like characters and setting. You have rising action to create suspense, and then falling action leading to a cosy, happily ever after style resolution. Cinderella is a great traditional example. It has a beginning, a middle and an end, chronological, ordered. We are introduced, exposed to Cinders, who has an awful life with a wicked stepfamily. She goes to a ball and dances with Prince Charming, Finally, after a small catastrophe, they live happily ever after. So you're exposed to characters, including the protagonist, the main character, in the exposition. The rising action takes you to the ball. The resolution then leaves you with a warm and cosy feeling, as it's all nice and normal. Guy gets girl, evil loses, yada yada. Moving on. So we know that there are different types of whole narrative structure, and what types there are. Now you need to explore what they each have in common, and the answer is more simple than you might think. Narratives of all kinds have a similar set of structural features. You definitely know what some of them are, if not a lot of them. Answer these, for example. What are the people in a story called? What is the place where a story is called? And what do we call the three main sections of a story? Exactly. So you know what the main three are, which are effectively 5. Now you also know the terms like exposition, that you can impress the examiner with instead of beginning, and resolution instead of end, and so on. Use them when you're talking about structure. You will get better marks. But what do you say about these features? You can ask yourself questions to get you started, like, how are we introduced to the characters at the start? How is the setting used to inspire interest? What information are we given at the beginning to interest us? Now, this last one could be either the beginning, the middle, or the end. It doesn't matter which you choose, as long as you can write about them, and in some detail, and at least clearly, if not perceptively. Structure questions are usually low mark questions, and so you only need to spend roughly 8 to 10 minutes writing your answers to them. So don't feel like you have to write loads, because you don't. You should be aiming for 1 or 2 good features, like character and setting, or character and beginning, and explaining them in one good paragraph detailing a single overall point. The more detailed, the better, and just one detailed paragraph is enough. Making a good, detailed point, using 2 to 3 good quotes and explaining your quotes well to back up your point will get you all the marks that you need. Don't waste your time writing 4 point evidence explain paragraphs which are too short. Your answer will always be underdeveloped. Let's look at what the examiners say about an example answer to this question. So we have this example answer from one of the sample papers that AQA put out. The sentence, "There had been a lot of days like that since his mother got sick," is important because it is the first mention of his mother being sick. It reminds us of the nightmare at the beginning, and at this point we understand the meaning of it, and that Alex is scared she is going to die. Now this seems like a very simple response, and it is. You could get so much more out of it. But the chief examiner's explanation of this is, although this response focuses on one particular sentence, the comment is at whole text level. It explains the significance of the sentence at this point in the text, i.e. where the sentence is placed contributes to the reader's understanding of the text as a whole. When we read this sentence, it makes us re-evaluate the meaning of Alex's nightmare at the beginning, and we now recognise how scared he is. Therefore, the sentence is structurally important and has nothing to do with language. It would be awarded a mark in level 3. Now this would be 5 marks out of 8, because it talks about the sentence in reference to where it is and how it relates back to the beginning. It's a structural comment, which is almost analysis. If developed a bit further, then full marks might have been awarded. This is the text it was from. As you can see, the sentence is only halfway down the whole A4 page. The student relates it back to the nightmare at the start and gets level 3, a grade 4 answer roughly. So it can be much easier than you think to get the question right. Practice will make perfect, so try writing short comments on openings and endings from favourite films or even your favourite TV show episode openings. This acronym might help when it comes to the exam. You only need, like I've said, 1 or 2 of these in mind for the question, but it would be good to have more than that stored in your memory banks. Remember, the setting, the characters, the atmosphere, the narrative voice, shifts or scene and topic changes when one thing moves from one thing to another. Scans might help jog your memory and help you work a little faster when you're under the real pressures of the exam. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, feedback or questions, then feel free to leave them at the bottom. And you should check out our other videos on our YouTube channel entitled Master GCSE.